So let's start off with a basic sketch that I created using Sketchbook Pro, and it's pretty much a simple sketch, really quick. And once you have your sketch, you can start using the pen tool, and we're in Illustrator right now, CS3. And right here, you just start off, we're just going to start with outlining the outer perimeter of our shoe. And you can see right now there's no stroke, there's a fill of white. So I'm just going to press the D key, which fills both of those, stroke and fill. And I'm just going to get rid of the fill and proceed to outline my outer object with the pen tool. And you can see I'm clicking and dragging the points. Here I'll start again, and clicking and dragging. You start to develop a knowledge of where you can actually start a point and end a point, and in between a curve, how far you need to go in order to create the appropriate curve. Once you do this a lot of times, it starts becoming pretty natural as far as where to do these. And you can see if you hold down your Option key, you can grab the end points or the extended points from the point at which you created, and those curves you can adjust accordingly. And you can always go back and do this later. So when I create my forms, I start out with the simplest way for me to do it is start with the upper and the tooling as separate objects. And these shapes that I'm creating right now are not a solid continuous form, but rather shapes that have intersecting lines cutting through. And we'll go through after I'm done finishing up with the outer edge of my object. I'll go and show you how to divide these into separate forms. And you just keep clicking and dragging and averaging out. And like I said before, you can always go back and add shapes and add additional points to your lines if you want to fine tune or have a piece extending. So there's always you're always free to do that at a later time. And I'm leaving those back cleats you can see in the background there. I'm going to leave those alone for now because I'll create those as separate shapes later on and just paste those behind or move them behind my front layer object. You can see there's some ribs that work through the flex area. I'm just going to leave those alone for now. Alright, once I finish up here, you'll see I'll just finish this here. Alright, so now I have my one object and the line, the top of that plate kind of cutting through and extending over the line. You don't want to be shy of that line because it won't divide the object properly. So let's go ahead and add a few more additional lines here. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up a few of these lines and come back with all these already created. So let me set that up. Okay, so now that we have our shapes here, you can see I'm going to select the outer edge and basically fill this in with a color. Let's go with like a red color, or like an orangey red, and I'm going to select that outer shape and the top of the plate line. I'm just going to grab just that line. So we have the two shapes grabbed right now, and the line has no fill. We're going to go to our Pathfinder and divide. You can see you have all these unique tools here that will let you do multiple functions. But let's click that divide tool and then ungroup. Right now they're connected together, so if you just ungroup, you can see keep this extended over. Actually, let's go back and make sure that we're aligned properly. And hit divide. You can see this little edge will go away once you hit divide. There we go. So now you have two shapes. They're connected, so ungroup them with that function right there. And now we have two separate objects. So let's make our objects separate by color. Now you can see the two forms that we made. So with our plate selected, we're going to select all the additional breaks and divide those, and noticing again that those extended ends will vanish. And if we ungroup and holding shift down, click on all these tips, and we'll make that another different color so you can see the difference. And we have multiply on right now so that we can keep seeing our artwork below. And just do the same for the upper panels. So you can quickly see how these shapes are beginning to define each other. There we go. And so you're wondering, what if you make a mistake and you want to modify a form, like in this area here? So let's go and select these two shapes, and right now this curve, what you're going to want to do is, see, we have these two separate shapes. You're going to want to go ahead and create your new line with the pen tool. Create whatever shape, we'll just do a random shape for now, just to show you. So say this is the new line we want to have, and we want to get rid of that gray and orange shape. So we'll select both of those together, and in our Pathfinder, let's move this up here so you can see what we're going to do. In our Pathfinder, you can unite right there, and we just combine those together. You still have that outline, so hit expand, and that gets rid of all the intersecting points and makes it one solid shape again. So now you go ahead and you grab that new line, you divide, and you have your two forms that are split with the new design line. So at the beginning of the process, it's having this ability is great, because you don't have to re-render something like you would have to in Photoshop. So if you're looking to adjust lines on a more frequent basis, using Illustrator is definitely your best bet. So right over here you can see aligning to that path, you create points on the orange material and that gray material that will snap to each other, so they create an identical point of location on both surfaces, and that's what you just saw right there. So here are a couple more paths that I laid in, and I just wanted to kind of do a few more just to show you a couple other functions. for example, the circle tool or ellipse tool, if you hold down Shift and Option on the keyboard, you can click and drag and create a circle. If you hold Shift down, it allows you to create a symmetrical circle. If you don't, it'll just create however you pull it. For example, you can create an ellipse, whatever shape or size. You can hit R for rotate. You can rotate that on any angle that you like. So I wanted to go back in here and show you how to get this like top eyelet. It's like the pen tool. I'm just going to click and kind of make a triangle here. Let's kind of square this off a little bit there. And basically, if you take this, let's give it a different fill color. If you take this, go to your effects tools, and under stylize, go to round corners. And this over here, if you hit preview, you can take a look at what it's going to do before you actually commit to anything. So kind of like that. We'll hit OK and reposition that. If you hit Apple and your square bracket, it'll go back in the layer sequence. And it's also a nice function. That way you can kind of move your objects, your layer objects above and below each other. And then here I'm going to hit Shift and alternate or Option, and this gives me this enlarges as proportionally. So I want to make that just a tad bit bigger. If you connect both of these, select them both at the same time, go to your align and align this way. Let's undo that. There you go. You kind of have it aligned on center. Alright, so let's zoom out here. And let's redo these up here. Basically what you want to do is create your ellipse shape and then duplicate. So hold down Shift and Option and then Apple D, and it will duplicate many times. Undo, undo, undo. And then if you hit Shift Option and click and drag, it'll basically duplicate it. So we have that. Select them all. Apple C, Apple F for paste in front. And you can move that whole grouping over. And think about what angle these are going to go at. Let's delete that and start over. So I'm going to hit R for rotate, and right there you can see it's going to rotate on the center. And kind of put it on the angle that I want. This will be easier for you if you're not familiar with perspectives. But if I hit my V selection tool, copy, paste in front, Apple C, Apple F, and then drag that top layer of circles over just a tad. And we'll probably want to show some material from the top side. Select all of those. Under your Pathfinder tool over here, hit Divide, Ungroup, and then just select the ones and delete what you don't want. There's a simpler way, a little bit more advanced way to do that, but that's basically the simplest way to explain it. And then here you can kind of reposition. There's going to be some stitching here, so I want to move that down a bit away from that stitching. Okay, we can select those, we don't need them. Alright, so there you go. You have some holes in the vamp area down there at the bottom of the throat, and we have some more venting here. This gray piece is eventually going to be a clear TPU part. And let's finish off some of these some of these. I just want to show you, since we are going to want to see through this piece, the best thing to do is you want to try to maintain and preserve these shapes. So I'm going to hit Apple C to copy and then Apple B to paste in back. And while that's selected, I will select this form and I'm going to duplicate it. So copy Apple C, Apple B, paste in back. So now I've duplicated this plate and these two cleat shapes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide them apart from each other. So I'm going to select, 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 and then the parts that I want to explode. So we're going to break this part and that apart. And let's see, divide. These kind of go away, but if you hit the letter D, it'll fill. Ungroup. And basically I want to save these two pieces, and the rest of it I'm going to delete because I made duplicates of it. So the only ones I want to preserve and hold on to are those two parts here. So I'll click on them, that one and that one, this one and this one, and everything else while holding down Shift. Everything else I want to delete, so I'll just hit the delete button. So now you can see I have these. These are on top. They're on top of my layer. So if I hit Shift Apple and then the square bracket, that'll push it to the back. And if you lock these two objects and then select these two here, and if you change those, let's change them to let's go to like a red. You basically can see that those are definitely behind. And if I unlock and then move this over, see how you can kind of see that there's this piece of cleat is down in the back. So for example, if this cleat were a true red, and same for this piece, it's also a true red. That's kind of what the effect you're going to see through there. Gets a little darker. So alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put in my collar line, get all these other lines defined in here. Some of my lacing will come afterwards, but I'll put those in, and then I'll touch base with you again. I'll see you in a bit.